Okay, here we go. So, question is, how do the poets in Poppies and one other you have studied, what are we doing with remains? Explore. Now, explore what? What were the connections that we were making between the two poems? Poppies and remains. So this is where you look at your anthology. Go on.
It's sort of like questioning what's going on, like the madness of what's going on at the moment.
Explore
Doubt.
the madness of war. Let's go with that one. You won't get anything. It won't be quite like that, but that doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's your question. So, let's go through and actually work out exactly what this question is asking you to do. How do the poets and Poppies and one other explore the madness of war? What is the question actually about? The poets. Good. That is what the question is about. Question 1 of paper 1. How does Shakespeare explore battles? Question 2, paper 1. How does Dickens present blah de blah? Question 1 of paper 2. How does Priestley do such and such with Inspector Calls? Section B, question 1 of paper 2. How do the poets? Okay, how many people do we need to be making sure we refer to? 2. Okay, no more. You don't need to go anywhere other than that. The minute you start branching off into different ideas and different people, you limit the scope you have to cover the actual response. Okay, English language. How does George Alagar in Passage to Africa evoke pity? In Benjamin Zephaniah's Young and Dyslexic, how does he, I don't know, explore ideas of anger? It's about the writer. It is always about the writer and therefore the choices the writer is making to put the words down on the page, okay? It's about choices. So this one here, that is choices, okay? So the how part are the choices the writer is making. But the choices the writer is making to do what exactly? Go on.
To express the ideas of the question.
Yeah, to explore the ideas of madness. So what words are they using and what are they doing with those words to show you their ideas about the madness of war? So this part here, okay, is to do with that. That's why they're making those choices. So if anything, it's the angle of the purpose of the poems that you need to deal with. So this, let's do here, the purpose of the poems. Whether that was the poet's intention at the time that they wrote, doesn't matter. It covers what we call the reader response. So the minute the writer puts pen on paper, their intention behind the work becomes irrelevant because it is what the reader interprets, which makes poetry universal. Okay, one other thing you have to do. So these are the compulsory things. There's one other compulsory thing you need to do. And if you don't, you will get burnt. Will?
Poppies and one other.
Good. Okay. So this one here. You have no option. Okay, so this is compulsory. You have to write about the poets. You have to write about Poppies and one other poem, and you have to write about the madness of war. You don't have a choice. and you won't get options in the paper. You don't get to choose one poem as opposed to over another. However, the exam board can't simply leave it at that. They've got to be able to give you the scope and the room to breathe, to stretch, to flex, to then give your particular interpretation. Which words or phrases in that question offer you an opportunity to do something with them? James?
Explore.
Yeah, this one here. You have to cover the madness of war. But exactly as it is in Shakespeare, Dickens, Inspector Calls, any of the poetry, this green one is the opportunity for you to come up with your thesis, your angle, your interpretation. Okay? This is the opportunity. It's your opportunity to interpret. Okay? This is your ideas. The how bit, again, is down to you. How do you think the writers have done it? How do you think they've expressed their ideas or the ideas that you are going via in their particular poems? And it could be anything. Every one of you should be coming up with quite a unique idea. Some of them will be very similar, but a poem and a response to a poem is very, very personal. GCSE, a little less personal. A-level, a lot more. Okay? So this one here, that's down to you and what stands out to you as a reader. Okay, so the how is what do you pick up on? And this is virtually the same for all of your literature questions. And actually, in honesty, for all of the questions you do in English. English is about your response, your personal response. It's not about learning fact. It's about how you interpret the information that you have. Show me what you can do with what you know. Okay? Now, let's go through some ideas as to what on earth we can cover. We are going to do remains. Okay? So the second poem, we're going to do remains. That will not be in the paper. The only poem you get in the paper is the one that is named in the question. So Poppies is what we call our named poem. The question has named it. That will be printed in the paper. The other one, you're going to have to work out. Okay? Which means you need to know your key quotes. You need to know your key ideas. So the best way to deal with that, and the best way you approach the answer, is you do text level, and this covers all of your exams for English. Text level. What is the overall idea? Different points within the poem. Because you're comparing, very similar with the Shakespeare and the Dickens, because you've got to go in two places in that. You've got to go the extract and then elsewhere. Here, you've got poem 1, then poem 2. You're still dealing with two different aspects. Text level. At some point in poem 1, in Poppies. You then move that to sentence level. So you're beginning to zoom in. So you look at the overall impression, one of maybe 3. Okay? So let's do that 3 times. This sentence level is find me a bit. Find me a part, find me a section, find me a moment within the poem that you can really target. Where do you think you go from here?
Word.
Good. Okay, you then move into word level. Not all of them, but out of your particular quote that you've chosen, which one stands out? So you zoom in, and then zoom in again. But you've always got your eye on the bigger picture. So it's all very well to then to get lost in this, which is perfectly capable. It's brilliant, so exciting. Okay, that's what we do at A-level language. We get lost in words. But you must always keep your eye on this bigger picture. You must never lose that bigger picture. Okay? Because you wander off into oblivion and you don't actually end up by answering the question. What you say may be brilliant, but if it doesn't answer the question, you don't get the mark. Does that make sense? The mark scheme says even level 1, a response to text and task. It has to be relevant. Yeah, it's difficult to not make it relevant. Even by writing the poet, you are responding to the task. You then start talking about poet or poppies, you're responding to the text. So it's difficult not to get a level 1. Level 2, relevant. That's where the word comes in. It comes in at level 2. Okay? If you start talking to me about the poet and the poppies and it's got nothing to do with the madness of war and it's about shoes, and that doesn't work, you're not going to do very well. Okay? So you have to keep your eye on the bigger picture. That is how you need to revise. That is how you need to structure your responses. What, how, and then from there you get the why, and then you take it somewhere else. You take it into the second text. You take it into the second poem. You take it elsewhere within the play or the novella. Okay? So, let's actually have a look at what we could say in Poppies. So, in Poppies, I need 3 big ideas. Okay? So I'm going to do this as a table. If you want to do this to revise, that's absolutely fine. And I need 3 big ideas for remains. This will be a lot quicker when you do it, because when you do it, you will have the poem there straight in front of you. So we're not going to have to take this and this slowly and this systematically. When you revise, this is how you need to do it. You need to do it carefully. You need to craft. Take your time. Do not reread. Lift the information. Put it down. Because the information we have in our anthologies is not detailed enough. It is simply not going to sustain you. So, give me one idea. Let's do this as blue. Give me an idea in Poppies about the madness of war. Just the idea first. Cameron. The loss of family. Good. Okay. Now let's find a line. We zoom in, text level, sentence level. That's the big idea. That's text level. Good. Now let's give me a line. Go on.
Before you left.
Yep, line 3. When you actually write it, don't give me lines. Just give me the evidence. You don't need to identify. On line 3, when it says, no, we don't need to do that, okay? So, word level, before you left. Sentence, word. Okay? Now, where is line 3? It's the first stanza. It's it's the second sentence. Okay? Before you left where?
To war.
Left to go to war. Okay? But she starts, what goes before the line? What's before the quote that we're dealing with? What comes before this? Goes to the 4 words on the rest of the line.
No, individual war graves.
Individual war graves, full stop. Before you left. Hang on a minute. What's the connection here? He's dead. He is one of those individual war graves before you left. Left what? Oh my God, this is awful. Okay? That is meaning. That's mad. Why is it mad? Because we can't get our heads around it. Is it crazy? Probably. But madness of war is not necessarily to do with chaos. We get that in Remains. Crikey, we get a lot of that in Remains. Okay? Here, it could be we just don't get it. So it is an emotional response to it. Okay? So before you left, here we've got beginning. Okay? Individual war graves. Before you left. So, meaning. So we've got the war graves. Okay? He's leaving to go to war. He has died. He is that individual war grave. When you write that up, that's a paragraph, really lovely paragraph. You start with the meaning, You go into the line that you're dealing with. Take out the full line, that's fine. You then focus in on this and you talk to me about why. Text level, sentence level, word level, the why part, okay? So this bit here, this is the why. This bit, this is the what. This bit here, this is the how. So even though we've got this what, how, why, and you are going to be sick of it, it functions with how we need to approach every single question, every idea, every essay. You follow that structure and it fits, it works in. Keep that what, how, why, what, how, why, what, how, why, always in your head. Okay? Now, you then do that twice more. So let's do the text level one really quickly. So give me another idea about the madness of war. Is it her madness, our madness, the general sense of chaos? Has he lost a sense of something? Does it have to be about insanity? Can it be something else? So this is where we start interpreting madness. So when you're in your paper, you've got 45 minutes to do this question. You need to be quite speedy. So we're reading it, we're thinking madness. What could madness mean? What could madness be? Okay? I'm thinking madness could be a loss of sense. Yeah? If you're mad, you don't have complete sense. Agreed? Who has not got sense? The boy. Okay? So it could be a loss of sense. If you have a loss of sense, you're blind, aren't you? You're blinded. You go at it blindly. Okay? Doesn't necessarily mean it's literally blinded. Blinded by what? What is the boy blinded by?
Being brave. Patriotism.
Good. Being brave, patriotism. Give me the line. Cameron?
Intoxicated.
Brilliant. Okay, 22. Okay, you were away intoxicated. You could have a split second intoxicated. That one you can do as well. So you can blend lines. If you're going to blend a quote, what 3 things are you going to include in between either section? Dot, dot, dot. You do not need to write out line 21 and 22. Okay? So let me show you. So here, line 21, a split second. You don't need to then go, and you were away, comma, intoxicated. These words here, at the moment, we don't really need. They're not going to help us answer our question. They're not supporting our thesis, our argument. I'm going to take them out. Okay? So you write, in a split second, dot, 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 intoxicated, because those are the words we're going to deal with. You don't need to copy out every single word if what you want is at the beginning of a sentence and the rest of it is at the end. Get rid of the stuff in the middle. Okay? So dot, dot, dot. Then we've got the why part. Then we've got the meaning, the interpretation. Okay? And then you do that again. We then need to move into remains. Now, is there a sense of compare? Is the question asking you to compare? No. You do need to deal with them together. It is not asking you to find similarities and differences. It's asking you to deal with these 2 poems together. Tell me how Poppies does it. Now tell me how Remains does it. You could, I don't advise it, but you could do Poppies times 3, then Remains times 3. You could do that. If you do, you won't get more than a level 4, which is roughly a grade 5-ish. Okay? I suggest you do Poppies and Remains, Poppies and Remains, Poppies and Remains. Okay? Exactly the way that you do your Shakespeare. You deal with the text, you bounce out. You deal with the text, you bounce out. Here, you're bouncing between the 2. Okay? That is more integrated. It's harder to get your head round, but it means you're dealing with these 2 poems together. So when you go through Poppies in the paper and you're annotating where these ideas, work out how does Remains do this? How is Remains different? How does this idea make me think of Remains? Is it an idea that perhaps Simon Amish does completely differently? It's not that he's intoxicated, he's sick. Okay, he's sick with what? He's sick with horror because of what the patriotism has done to him. Nice, let's move into that one. Then you kind of talk about that. Go back to Poppies. She's got a loss. She's got the sense of loss of family. Okay, that's mad. What is Soldier Remains lost? Well, he's lost his mind. He's lost sense of what is going on. He's lost his direction. He's come home and he can't escape. He would love to have lost, but he can't. Okay, move their way. So your creativity really needs to come through. That is when you go through the poems. That is when you start making those connections, and those connections are established through your revision. Okay? It is harder, really hard, to establish those creative connections when you are under the pressure and you haven't got that second poem in front of you. Now's the time to get those connections sorted out with the poems in front of you. Make those connections. Do things like this. And then from here, write me a paragraph. Craft that paragraph. Make sure it works. Move into your second poem. Craft me a paragraph for that. Let me see it. I'll mark it for you. Happy days. Because in the exam, you just pull that out of your head and put it on paper. If you can write your papers and your exam answers before the actual questions come out in some form, you will breeze those exams. Okay? We know what the questions will cover. They will cover 2 of these poems. We know that. We can more or less guess roughly what the connections are going to be. We know that. You then need to make sure you're prepared. If you prepare to fail, no, if you fail to prepare, you are preparing yourself for failure. Okay? Bit of a cheesy one, but it works. So, very quickly in Remains, give me an idea for either loss that we can either move on here, but we can use with Poppies. Does he have a loss of sense in Remains?
No, is it?
Go on.
He's got a fear of losing himself instead of...
Okay, so it's not necessarily a loss of family and losing the family, it's losing himself.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Is the mother in Poppies afraid of losing her son? Yeah, of course she is. So that then goes, oh, that's a nice connection. If you don't necessarily think it first off, that's fine. Bring it in towards the end. Finish off with that nice connected. Okay? Right. Text level. Overall meaning. Find me, zoom in. Find me sentence level. Give me a line. He's afraid of losing himself. Losing his sense of humanity. Losing his identity because of what he's done. Where does he lose himself? James?
It's about the drink and the drugs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the drink and the drugs won't flush him out.
Okay. So he needs to lose himself. He needs to go into oblivion. This one, Poppy, she's afraid of that. She doesn't want to lose her son. She knows she's going to, but she doesn't want to lose him. He tries to lose himself. Okay? But it's a madness of war. That's your umbrella idea. How has Armitage done it? Well, he's done it in this way. How has Janeway done it? Well, she's done it over there. Brilliant. That's the richness of your response. And it's the richness and creativity behind it that will get you those serious marks. Okay? So we've got drink and drugs. Okay, won't flush him out. That key quote you need to know. You don't know, and we don't know what the name poem is going to be, so you need to have about 3 key, really important ideas from these poems. 3 per poem is roughly what you need. Okay? Which is 45 quotes for your poetry. It's a lot of stuff. Not as much as you have to know for science and maths, but you still know it. Your brains are ripe for the picking. Right, word level. Which ones here are we going to start focusing on?
Love.
Why?
Because it's a good word.
Yeah, but can you write something about it? So is drugs as well. Or drink. They're brilliant words. Now, if you can't write about it, leave it. Okay, you need to be really, really picky. That's the judicious quote. Choose something you can write about. If you can't write about it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Okay, here. Go on.
The word flush because it means that it's totally getting rid of everything.
So it's expelling. Yeah. So that she can write. If you can't write about flush, don't do it. But if you can, go for it. Okay. So let's have a look here. Okay. So it's expel. Okay. Expelling the vision. Cleansing. If you flush something out, you're cleansing it. If you need to flush something, you've got some kind of mass or barrier that you need to get rid of. Okay. So the barrier or the mass is blocking. What is it blocking? What's been blocked in his mind? Come on, think about what he's been through and what he cannot now continue. He can't continue with his life. His life, his existence, his entire ability to process and live is being blocked because he's constantly having to relive the death of this looter and the way that looter died. Okay? So this one here, to expel the vision, the barrier or the mass is blocking. It's blocking his perception. It's blocking his clarity. Blocking his mind. Why? Why is that important? Why does this show us the madness of war? Okay? Then you need to go, and that's when you go into the detail. That's when you start developing an interpretation. Drink and drugs, where is that going to take him? Takes him to oblivion. Okay? Takes him to a bad place, but that is a place he'd far rather be than here. Okay? The fear is that it won't flush out. That's what he's afraid of. If he goes to oblivion, he is in a completely sterile, empty place. That is far better than having his mind full of this vision, okay? So here we can really work the idea. That goes into oblivion, which is empty. It is a better place than here, okay? You don't need to deal with the quotes and the words in a particular order, but you need to deal with them. So when you go through your annotations, you annotate Poppies. Okay? You find the bit here before you left. In the exam, you write your note. You then draw an arrow, and then you pick up your note in terms of remains. That's all that you need to do. Because then when you go into writing it, you're then putting it all together. You're basically writing it up, but you're making sure it makes sense. Some of you were writing notes, didn't make sense, okay? It's not just a case of filling in the gaps, it's using that as your cue cards to have a discussion with your examiner, to talk to me about where your ideas are coming from, okay? So you're writing as an opportunity to have a written discussion with me as your marker. That is how you approach the question. And in tomorrow's lesson, we'll actually go through how you answer the question based on this. Okay? In preparation for your assessment on Monday, which would be on one of the 3 poems that we have studied.